Yeah, you know how we do it. Of course, of course,
Of course I rise, of course I shine. Walk through the storm, yeah, this life is a mine. Of course I fight, of course I win. Never backing down, I was born to begin. Started from the bottom, nothing came for free. Every step I took, they doubted me. But I kept my head up, kept my eyes on the prize. Now the city know my name, see it in their eyes. Hustle in my veins, fire in my chest. Every challenge I face, I give it my best. No time for fake friends, no room for doubt. I built my empire, now I'm calling it out. Of course I rise, of course I shine. Walk through the storm, yeah, this life is a mine. Of course I fight, of course I win. Never backing down, I was born to begin. Late nights, early mornings, chasing every dream, turning every failure into a winning scheme. People try to stop me, but they can't block my way. I'm the author of my life, writing every day. Success is my language, confidence my tone. Standing on my own, yeah, I built this throne. When the world pushes back, I push harder still. Of course I rise, of course I will. Of course I rise, of course I shine. Walk through the storm, yeah, this life is a mine. Of course I fight, of course I win. Never backing down, I was born to begin. Of course, never look back. I'm on the right track. This is my time. I'm built to shine.